So interesting. I have a curiosity, like practical question for you. We have a little daily newsletter that we do that focuses, I would say, primarily on philosophy, like this podcast does. But a few months ago, we started this weekly series, "The Wisdom of Art," which it includes kind of a famous piece of painting, a well-known poem, along with some sort of bit of prose, if you will, that is maybe on the subject. And I don't exactly know why I felt that was useful and something, important to do. So for the listeners out there that may get that weekly, a painting, a poem in prose, what are the benefits of, you talked about that seeing thing, but from a practical thing of taking the time to try to see and maybe from a poem thing, feel, just experience that.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's something I've actually thought about. Um, so I said before that I sometimes have negative emotions with art. It's interesting because one of the most, I love art. Like when I am in a city, the thing I like to do is go to the local museum. I just love it. But I often have the experience of being bored by art, even art which on reflection is really good. So that made me start thinking about, could it be that the ability of art to bore us is actually a gift, a benefit, and what could be going on there? And so here's what I came up with. Um, it goes back to the thing we were just talking about. Our lives are organized. We don't live in the moment. We live in the arcs of our projects. So, this interview, my marriage, my career, my years in college or my years in high school, whatever it is, each of us, and and so we divide life in these ways. Now the thing is, like high school, it has a beginning and a middle and an end. And when you say I'm now in high school, you're already charting an arc. So in a way, the end is already foretold. It's like a baseball. You throw it up and you know where it's going to come down within reason. Surprises can happen, but I think it's as we get older, our lives become more and more organized with these nesting arcs of commitment: work, life, marriage, family, career, service, whatever it might be. Um, and without that, our lives would be meaningless because it's our marriage, our work, our lives, our parenthood, our high school. I mean, these are the things that literally are the meanings of our lives. But they also bring us racing along like a baseball shot through the air on an arc. The thing about a work of art, whether it's a poem or a painting or a little prose description, is that those things say stop. They interrupt what you're doing. If you're thinking about your email when you're in the museum, then you are blind to what you're seeing. If you're thinking about what somebody tells you this poem means when you're reading the poem, then you're not reading the poem. To really engage in artwork is to go into a zone of interrupting, for whatever the brief amount of time is, interrupting your life. It sounds kind of dramatic, but I think it's really true. You're all of a sudden, time drops out of the arc into the metronome. Click, 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 click. And it's just you, the object you're looking at, and time. Time slows down. That's a benefit. You want to live longer? Slow time down. And you can do it. You can do it by paying attention to things right now. Stop living in 5 years ahead. Stop living in the fantasy of your pension. Stop living in the conclusion of this event. Live in the present moment of this event. It's not easy, but works of art are an invitation to do that because you cannot see them if you're engaged in the race. And not only do they, I once knew a guy who said, if you want to slow your life down, quit your job and get a divorce. Um, and what I realized, what he was getting, and I'm not recommending quitting your job or getting a divorce, but what he was recommending is break the habits. And that's
Hmm.
every work of art is an opportunity to break your habits. And in that sense, shift into a very, very slow gear. Um, and then furthermore, that negative feeling which may result of, oh my God, the play has only been going on for 10 minutes and I already want to leave. I need to check my messages. That irritation is really an opportunity by reflecting on what's going on there to become a little different, maybe not revolutionarily different, but a little different, and to grow and change. So that's what I think you're offering your readers when you offer them um, a poem to think about or a painting to think about. You're offering them a chance to recover what it is not to already be in the middle of a task where you already know what success or failure is, but just to be given given the present. And and it's interesting because when I started thinking about this, I remembered that as a kid, um, as a little kid, I grew up in the time when parents didn't microorganize their kids' lives, and I remember like a Sunday afternoon was the boringest thing that there was. I mean, I'd be out running around with my friends, but there would be these Sundays seemed like a vast stretch of time because it's just like or a summer like the middle of summer was an eternity when you were a kid, um, at least for me, I guess speaking just to my own case. And I think art is an opportunity to recapture that feeling, which isn't all bad.
It's so fascinating. I had a previous guest that came on, it's been a long time, but wrote about this idea of going to look at a painting for 3 hours uninterrupted, and how this strange tool, in your words, like, is doing this work over time, and like hour 2 to hour 3, this particular painting being different than it was, in that first hour. There's another book that I read a long time ago. Henry Nouwen wrote a book on essentially this experience of looking at Rembrandt's The Prodigal Son for, like 10 hours straight. It just like sucked him in. And I'm curious, like, there's that thing of maybe we're before it, maybe it's on our screen, we're in a museum. But what about this idea of essentially we can pull it up in our mind? If we have a favorite painting, a favorite, song, as we're navigating through the day, we have this ability to pull it up and actually see it in our minds. Like, how do you think about that in the way of these strange tools, essentially like living with us, if you will?
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought, and it reminds me of I once had a medical scare. I turned out to be okay, but there was a period when I was having test after test, and I was inside an
Mm.
MRI and having all these sort of scary moments, not knowing what was going on. And I did exactly that. I actually called to mind works of art that were important to me, and they helped me get through. They helped me get through those moments. Um,
Mm.
and I think I don't have a very good answer for that, except that I think that part of what goes on there is part of what's going on is that those works of art are transcendent, by which I mean they're bigger than you can actually remember. You can kind of remember what it looks like, but they're bigger. I mean, there's obviously prodigies that can remember a whole symphony note for note, but most of us, you remember the rough development of the song or the music or the symphony or the painting, but without necessarily photographic recall. But so the work in your memory becomes an opportunity to ask questions and think about and try to reconstruct and discover. So it's the work of art invites you to do something, not just to receive it, but to remake it. And that's a very powerful, I think, affirming thing to do. Um, and then also it maybe helps you get back into the emotional place.